Welcome to Mountain Strong. Today I am at Midnight Sun Bible Camp. I'm taking part in something with my boys called Family Camp. And Family Camp is just a time where families come together and enjoy this beautiful piece of property that the Lord has blessed the church here to be able to maintain. It's a piece of property that has to be accessed down a very, very long dirt road. And so you go along this dirt road bumping, and my first memory of Midnight Sun Bible Camp was actually going down that road with my wife when she was pregnant with my son Ezra. And so it was obviously a very, very difficult journey at that time, but he managed to not come out, and she managed to make it out. And so we enjoyed our first time there at Midnight Sun, and I've really enjoyed being able to come down to this property ever since. But in any event, today we're going to be having a look together at Psalm 91. Let's read that now. He who dwells in the shelter of the Most High will abide in the shadow of the Almighty. I will say to the Lord, my refuge and my fortress, my God, in whom I trust. For he will deliver you from the snare of the fowler and from the deadly pestilence. He will cover you with his pinions, and under his wings you will find refuge. His faithfulness is a shield and buckler. You will not fear the terror of the night, nor the arrow that flies by day, nor the pestilence that stalks in darkness, nor the destruction that wastes at noonday. 1,000 may fall at your side, 10,000 at your right hand, but it will not come near you. You will only look with your eyes and see the recompense of the wicked. Because you have made the Lord your dwelling place, the Most High, who is my refuge, no evil shall be allowed to befall you, no plague come near your tent. For he will command his angels concerning you to guard you in all your ways. On their hands they will bear you up, lest you strike your foot against a stone. You will tread on the lion and the adder, the young lion and the serpent you will trample underfoot. Because he holds fast to me in love, I will deliver him. I will protect him, because he knows my name. When he calls to me, I will answer him. I will be with him in trouble. I will rescue him and honor him. With long life I will satisfy him and show him my salvation. One of the recurring themes in the Psalms is the idea of God as a fortress. And each of those Psalms that talks about God being a fortress adds to the depth of the idea. In this psalm, as we think about God as a fortress, we're seeing the need to reflect upon God as a fortress in order to maintain God as a fortress. And so when you think about reflecting upon that idea, the Psalms teach you to do so in a number of ways. Here the psalmist thinks about the reality of having God as a fortress. And then he also thinks about the repercussions, or what comes because God is a fortress. Notice how he takes verse 1 and he says that, he who dwells in the shelter of the Most High will abide in the shadow of the Almighty. If you dwell with him, then you're going to be with him and be protected by him. And so then he says to the Lord, my refuge and my fortress, my God in whom I trust. He claims God as his fortress. And so, as he claims God as his fortress, he knows, one, in verse 3, that he's going to be delivered from traps, that whatever might ensnare him or trip him up, he's going to find a way of escape. Isn't it interesting when you think about that from the New Testament point of view, how we are promised essentially a way of escape, that we can be able to endure or bear the trials that we face. In verse 4, he realizes further that he is going to be under the wings of God. But I love the picture and how dynamic it is. Not merely under the wings of God like a sleeping bird might care for its mother and still be snuck up upon. God has his wings over us, but then in verse 4, his faithfulness is a shield and buckler, and that dynamic movement of a shield to protect whatever might come in its path. Protect the one who is being under that shield, or who is under that shield. And so he will be protected, he realized. Well, protected from what? Well, he's going to be protected in verse 5 from the dangers that he imagines, in verse 5, the terrors of the night. But then he's also going to be protected from the real dangers. Sometimes we're afraid of things that we imagine. Sometimes we're afraid of reality. In verse 5, he says we're going to be protected from the terrors of the night, but also from the arrow that flies by the day. He's going to be protected at all times in verse 6. In fact, he says the pestilence that stalks in darkness and the destruction that wastes at noonday, whether it's nighttime or whether it's daytime, he's going to find protection if God is his fortress. And in fact, even if there is incredible odds stacked against the psalmist, in verse 7 he says it could be 10,000, but they're going to fall because I'm on the side of God. And obviously this is poetic language. You get into the poetry verses 8 through 10, and this idea, I'm only going to look with my eyes and then they're going to fade away, and there's going to be nothing that comes into my tent, no plague, no evil. And obviously we know the people of God, even throughout the Bible, they've experienced evil. But what the psalmist is reflecting upon and calling us to reflect upon is the fact that no abiding evil is going to dwell in my tent. And the beauty of the Psalms is that they remind us that we are dwelling with the Lord. And especially so as we think about the New Testament, where the Lord is dwelling in us. We have a special relationship with God. And no matter what might befall us, we are going to be truly safe and protected from those things. In fact, in verses 11 and 12, he envisions the angelic host extending God's power to man. As you reflect upon verses 11 and 12, you realize that they are the favorite verses of the devil. He was going to use those to catch up Jesus, and obviously that didn't work. But also you think about them from the standpoint of Hebrews chapter 1, and you remind yourself that the angels are ministering spirits, ministering to those who are the heirs of salvation. And so yes, the Lord is extending help to mankind through angels, helping the righteous, those who are the heirs of salvation. God is working behind the scenes for us because he is our fortress. And no, it's not that we're not going to not stub our toe or be protected from wild beasts, but again, the truly oppressive forces that we could imagine that would wage not against our bodies but against our souls. God is going to see that those victories are possible. But again, we have to maintain the reality of God as our fortress in order to experience the tremendous blessings that brings. Verse 13, though, continuing, he talks about the protection once again that he's going to receive. As we mentioned that, the lion and the adder. And in verses 14 through 16, because he's reflected upon all of these things, he gets to realize these things. And there seems to be a voice that enters into this psalm. In English Standard Version here, it's quoted because it seems to be the words of God. God speaks and says, because he, that is the psalmist, holds fast to me in love, I will deliver him. I will protect him because he knows my name. When he calls, I will answer him. I will be with him in trouble. I will rescue him and honor him. With long life I will satisfy him and show him my salvation. And as we think about those things as a Christian today, they're as true today as they were back then. Generally, Christians live long and good lives. Occasionally, as a part of God's purpose, a person might die prematurely, a child might die in a Christian family. Things might happen negatively. But in all these things, you remember what Paul said, we are more than conquerors. We are truly safe in the arms of Jesus. And so, reflect upon this psalm, reflect upon God as a fortress. Think about what that means in order to claim this loving protection that we see in verses 14 through 16 from God. May God bless you today.